Admiral Kate Morrison had been staring at the stars for 3 hours when the alarm started screaming. She turned away from the observation deck window and ran toward the command center of the Terran Defense Station. Her boots clicked on the metal floors as she moved through the corridors that hummed with the quiet energy of a military base in space. The command center was full of noise and flashing lights when she arrived. Officers were running between stations, checking screens and talking into their headsets. Commander Ryan Blake met her at the entrance, his face serious and worried. "Admiral, we have a situation," he said, walking beside her as she moved toward the main display. "Something just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of our system. It's not one of ours." Kate stopped and looked at the big screen in the center of the room. It showed a green dot moving slowly toward their position. The dot was blinking red, which meant it was damaged or in trouble. "What do we know about it?" she asked. Ryan pulled up more information on his tablet. "The ship is about 200 meters long, but the design is completely unknown. It's not in any of our databases. The hull appears to be some kind of living metal mixed with crystal structures. And Admiral, it's badly damaged. We're reading atmosphere leaks and power failures across multiple sections." Kate studied the readings. In all her years commanding the defense station, she had never seen anything like this. Humanity had been exploring space for 50 years, but they had never found another intelligent species. Most people thought they were alone in the universe. "Are they trying to communicate?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. We've been receiving a signal on multiple frequencies. It's definitely artificial, but we can't understand it. Dr. Williams is working on translation protocols now." Captain Lisa Hayes approached from the communications section. She was young but smart, one of the best language experts in the fleet. "Admiral, I think we're making progress. The signal has mathematical patterns that suggest it's trying to establish communication. Give me another hour and I might be able to set up a basic translation system." Kate nodded. "Do it. But be careful. We don't know if they're friendly or hostile." The next hour passed slowly. Kate watched the alien ship get closer to their station. It was moving at a steady pace, not fast enough to be an attack, but not slow enough to be completely helpless. The damage was clearly visible now through the telescopes. Parts of the hull were cracked open, and strange blue liquid was floating in space around the ship. "Admiral, we have translation," Lisa announced. "It's basic, but I think we can communicate." "Put it through," Kate ordered. The main screen flickered and changed. Instead of showing the ship, it now showed the inside of what looked like a command center. But this was not a human command center. The walls were curved and seemed to be made of the same living metal as the ship's hull. Strange symbols glowed on surfaces that looked more grown than built. Then she saw them. The aliens, the being in the center of the screen, was tall and thin, with 4 arms instead of 2. Its skin was blue-silver and seemed to shift colors as it moved. It had large eyes that were completely black, and its face was more human-like than Kate had expected, but still clearly not human. "Can you understand us?" the alien asked. The voice came through the speakers as a flat computer translation, but Kate could hear something in the background that sounded like music mixed with wind. "Yes, we can understand you," Kate replied. "I am Admiral Kate Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. Who are you?" The alien's skin shifted to a darker blue. "I am Coordinator Zeth Ka of the Valari Collective. We have traveled very far to reach your space. We come seeking help." "Help with what?" Kate asked. The alien's form seemed to slump. Even with the translation barriers, Kate could see that this being was exhausted and afraid. "The Korthak Dominion," Zeth Ka said. "They have been destroying our worlds for 2 years. 17 of our colonies are gone. Our fleets are broken. Our people are dying or being taken as slaves." Kate felt a chill run down her spine. "Tell me about these Korthak." The screen changed to show images that made Kate's stomach turn. She saw burning cities, ships exploding in space, and beings that looked like a nightmare mixture of machine and flesh. The Korthak were larger than humans, with metal parts grafted onto their bodies and weapons built into their arms. "They are not just conquerors," Zeth Ka explained. They are a plague. They take everything from a world, all the resources, all the life. They turn some of our people into slaves and kill the rest. Then they move on to the next world. How many worlds have they conquered? Ryan asked. In the past century, they have destroyed 12 different civilizations, Zethka replied. Each time, they become stronger by taking the technology and sometimes the biology of those they defeat. They are part organic, part machine now. They adapt quickly to new threats. Kate was quiet for a moment, thinking, "Why come to us? How do you even know we exist?" "We have been watching your species for 20 years, Zethka said. "We know that you are warriors. We have seen your battles, your weapons, your determination. We know that you do not give up." "Easily, you've been watching us?" Kate asked, feeling a mix of surprise and concern, from a distance only. "We did not want to interfere, but we learned about your nature. You fight differently than other species. Most civilizations in the galaxy try to avoid war. They negotiate, they retreat, they try to find peaceful solutions. But when humans fight, you fight to win completely." Lisa stepped forward. "What exactly are you asking us to do?" Zethka's skin shifted to a lighter color. "We offer alliance. We can share our technology with you. Our faster-than-light drives are much better than yours. We can give you star maps showing other civilizations, other threats and opportunities. We can teach you about galactic politics and trade." "And in return?" Kate asked. "Help us survive. Help us fight back against the Korthek. We know your military is strong, but we do not ask you to fight alone. We will fight beside you. We have some ships left, some weapons, but we need your tactics. Your weapons, your way of thinking about war." Kate studied the alien commander. She could see the desperation in those large black eyes, could hear it in the translated voice. But she also saw something else: hope. "Coordinator Zethka, I need to be honest with you. Humanity has never fought a war in space against another intelligent species. We've had conflicts with each other, but never against aliens. We don't know if our weapons or tactics will work against the Korthek." "But you will try?" Zethka asked. Kate was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her duty to protect humanity, about the risks of getting involved in an alien war. But she also thought about the images she had seen, the burning worlds, and the innocent people who had died. "I can't make this decision alone," she said finally. "I need to contact the United Defense Council on Earth. They will have to decide if humanity will help you." "How long will that take?" Zethka asked. "A few days at most," Kate replied. "But I want you to know something, Coordinator. If humanity decides to help you, we don't do anything halfway. We don't just send a few ships or offer limited support. When humans go to war, we go to war completely." Zethka's skin shifted to a bright gold color. "That is what we hope for. That is why we came to you." Kate nodded. "Dock with our station. We'll provide medical help and supplies while we wait for the decision. But know this, if the Council decides to act, the galaxy is about to see what human warfare really looks like." As the alien ship moved closer to dock with the station, Kate wondered if she had just witnessed the beginning of humanity's entrance into galactic politics. She had a feeling that whatever happened next, the universe would never be the same. The emergency meeting room in Geneva was packed with the most powerful people on Earth. President Amanda Clark of the North American Federation sat at the head of the long table, looking at the faces of world leaders who had flown in from every corner of the planet. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the occasional rustle of papers. Chancellor Viktor Petrov of the Eurasian Coalition was reading through a thick folder of intelligence reports. General Paul Martinez of the South American Alliance was studying holographic displays that showed star maps and alien ship designs. Prime Minister Sarah Johnson of the African Union was taking notes on her tablet while Premier Shunwei of the Asian Federation looked at photographs of the destroyed Valari worlds. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Clark began, "we are here to make perhaps the most important decision in human history. 3 days ago, we made contact with an alien species asking for our help in a war. Today, we must decide if humanity will answer that call. Secretary of Defense Kevin Nash stood up and walked to the front of the room. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been in the military for 30 years and had seen many wars, but nothing like this. The situation is complex, he said, pressing a button that made the lights dim and activated the holographic display. The Villari Collective is what we would call a peaceful civilization. They have advanced technology, especially in space travel and energy production, but they are not warriors. The display showed images of Villari cities. They were beautiful, with flowing architecture that seemed to grow from the ground rather than being built. Gardens and parks were everywhere, and the buildings seemed to blend with nature. The Korthic Dominion, on the other hand, is a military empire, Nash continued. The display changed to show the nightmare images that Zethka had shared. They are conquerors. For over a century, they have been moving through this part of the galaxy, destroying civilizations and taking their resources. General Martinez leaned forward. What do we know about their military capabilities? Dr. Helen Carter, the chief scientist for the Defense Council, stood up. She was a small woman with thick glasses, but her voice was strong and clear. Based on the data the Villari provided, the Korthic are technologically superior to us in most areas. Their energy weapons are more powerful than ours. Their ships are faster and better protected. They have been fighting space wars for centuries while we have been fighting each other on one planet. Then why should we get involved? Asked Chancellor Petrov. If they are so much stronger than us, what can we possibly do to help? Nash smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Because they have never fought humans before. The Villari showed us recordings of Korthic battles against other species. They rely heavily on energy shields and long-range energy weapons. They fight in formations that stay far apart and try to wear down their enemies slowly. And that's different. From how we fight? Asked Premier Chun. Completely different, Nash replied. Human military doctrine is based on overwhelming force applied quickly. We use kinetic weapons, nuclear weapons, and close-range combat. We try to get in close and hit hard. The Korthak have never faced that kind of fighting. General Martinez was nodding. Our ships are built differently too. Most alien species, including the Villari, design their ships to avoid damage. They rely on shields and speed. Our ships are built to take damage and keep fighting. Prime Minister Johnson looked up from her notes. But what about the risks? If we fight the Korthak and lose, they might come after Earth next. Dr. Carter activated another display. Actually, that's almost certain to happen anyway. The Korthic expansion pattern shows they are moving in our direction. Based on their current rate of conquest, they will reach human space within 20 to 30 years whether we help the Villari or not. The room was quiet for a moment as everyone absorbed this information. So our choice is not whether to fight them, President Clark said slowly. Our choice is whether to fight them now with allies or fight them later alone. Exactly, Nash confirmed. If we help the Villari now, we learn about Korthic tactics and technology while we still have time to prepare. We also gain allies who know the galaxy much better than we do. Chancellor Petrov was still skeptical. What can the Villari offer us? If they are losing this war, what good are they as allies? Nash activated another display. Their technology is very advanced in areas we've never explored. Their faster-than-light drives are 60% more efficient than ours. They have detailed maps of this entire section of the galaxy. They know about dozens of other alien civilizations, including potential allies and threats. They also have something else, Dr. Carter added. Knowledge. They understand galactic politics, trade routes, and the locations of important resources. Without that knowledge, humanity would be stumbling blind into a galaxy full of dangers. General Martinez leaned back in his chair. There's another factor we haven't discussed. The Villari came to us specifically because they believe humans are good at war. They've been watching us for 20 years. They know how we fight. If we help them and win, word will spread through the galaxy that humans are not to be messed with. And if we lose, asked Premier Chun. Then we lose fighting for something we believe in, Martinez replied. Better than waiting for the Korthik to show up at Earth's doorstep. President Clark looked around the table. I want to hear from each of you. What does your nation think about this decision? Chancellor Petrov spoke first. The Eurasian Coalition has always believed in helping those who cannot help themselves. We have seen what happens when strong nations ignore the pleas of the weak. Evil grows stronger when good people do nothing. Prime Minister Johnson nodded. The African Union agrees. We know what it's like to be oppressed by a stronger power. If we have the ability to help the Valari, we should do it. Premier Shan was quiet for a moment. The Asian Federation is concerned about the risks. But we also understand that sometimes you must fight today to prevent a bigger war tomorrow. We support helping the Valari. General Martinez spoke for South America. Our military analysis shows that this is our best chance to face the Korthik threat. We should take it. President Clark looked at the faces around the table. Then we are unanimous. The question now is how we help them. Nash pulled up tactical displays. The Valari have given us the locations of 3 major Korthik strongholds in their territory. If we can hit these targets, we can disrupt their supply lines and give the Valari time to rebuild their forces. How many ships would we need? Asked Martinez. For a decisive strike, I recommend at least 50 vessels, Nash replied. That's about half of our deep space fleet. Dr. Carter looked worried. That's a huge risk. If we lose that many ships, then we better not lose, Nash said simply. President Clark stood up. I'll contact Admiral Morrison and give her the authorization to begin planning. But I want to be clear about something. We're not just sending a few ships to help out. If we do this, we do it right. We hit the Korthak hard enough that they know humanity is not to be ignored. The meeting continued for another 2 hours as they discussed details, but the main decision was made. Humanity would go to war in space for the first time in their history. They would fight not for conquest or resources, but to help a species they had just met. As the world leaders filed out of the room, President Clark stayed behind with Nash and Dr. Carter. Are we making the right choice? She asked. Nash looked at the star map still glowing on the display. Ma'am, I've been a soldier for 30 years. I've seen what happens when bullies are allowed to keep bullying. The Korthak won't stop with the Valari. They'll keep going until someone stops them. And you think we can stop them? Nash smiled. Ma'am, they've never fought humans before. They're about to learn what that means. 3 hours later, Admiral Morrison received her orders. Earth's greatest military fleet would be assembled and sent to fight an alien empire that had been conquering worlds for centuries. The message was simple: prepare for war. Show them what humans can do. The Korthik fleet hung in space like a collection of metal insects. Their ships were dark and angular, covered in spikes and weapon ports that glowed with red energy. For 3 months, they had been slowly destroying the defenses of Asen Prime. The last major Valari world in this sector. Commander Vexthal stood on the bridge of the Korthik flagship, watching the planet below through the view screen. His body was more machine than flesh now, with metal arms that ended in weapon barrels and sensors that had replaced his original eyes. Like all Korthak, he had been modified over the years to become a better warrior. Status report, he demanded, his voice a mechanical rasp. The planetary shields are down to 30%, reported his weapons officer. Their orbital stations have been destroyed. We can begin the final assault whenever you order it. Vexthal nodded. This was how it always went. The Korthak would arrive at a world, destroy the defenses slowly and carefully, then move in for the final kill. It was efficient, and it sent a message to other species about what happened when you opposed the Dominion. Prepare the landing forces, he ordered. We will take the planet tomorrow. That was when the alarm started screaming. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected, shouted the sensor officer. Unknown vessels dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Vexthal turned to look at the tactical display. 50 new contacts had appeared on the screen, moving toward the Korthak fleet at high speed. The ships were unlike anything in the Korthik databases. Analysis, he demanded. The vessels appear to be heavily armed and armored, the sensor officer reported. They are using kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles. Technology is primitive but effective. Vexthal studied the display. How many ships? 50 confirmed. They are maintaining tight formation and approaching directly. 50 ships against our 47, Vexthal mused. They must be very confident or very stupid. On the bridge of the USS Retribution, Commander Jake Sullivan was feeling both confident and nervous. This was humanity's first real space battle against aliens, and everyone knew that the fate of both species might depend on how well they fought today. Range to target? He asked. 2 million kilometers in closing, reported Lieutenant Nina Foster at the weapons station. All ships report. Ready for combat. Jake looked at the main screen, which showed the Korthik fleet spread out in a defensive formation. The alien ships were larger than the human vessels, and their energy weapons had longer range. But the humans had advantages too. Admiral Morrison's voice came over the communication system from the flagship USS Normandy. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. Today we show the galaxy what human warriors can do. Remember your training, trust your equipment, and take care of your shipmates. Weapons free in 30 seconds. Jake felt his heart beating faster. Around him, his crew was preparing for battle. The weapons officer was checking targeting systems. The engine room was reporting full power. The Marines were getting ready in case they needed to board enemy ships. Admiral, Jake said into his communicator, the Korthik are not moving to engage. They're staying in defensive formation. I see it, Morrison replied. They're used to fighting enemies who attack from long range. They don't know what to do with opponents who want to get close. The human fleet was now within range of the Korthik. Weapons, energy beams started lancing out from the alien ships, but most of them missed. The Korthik were aiming where they thought the human ships would be, but the human captains were changing course constantly. Return fire, Morrison ordered. The human response was immediate and devastating. Instead of the energy beams that the Korthik expected, the human ships fired solid projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. The railgun slugs hit the Korthik shields and punched right through them. Direct hit on the lead cruiser, reported Nina. Their shields are down and we're reading atmosphere loss. Jake watched in amazement as the Korthik ship started tumbling. Out of control. The aliens had never faced kinetic weapons before, and their shields were not designed to stop solid projectiles, but the humans were not finished. As the fleets got closer, the human ships launched thousands of missiles. These were not the simple rockets that most species used, but smart weapons, guided by artificial intelligence that could think faster than any organic mind. The Korthik point defense systems tried to shoot down the missiles, but there were too many of them. The missiles swarmed around the alien ships like angry bees, looking for weak spots in their armor. Multiple hits on enemy formation, reported the tactical officer. At least 6 ships are showing heavy damage. Captain Ellen Davis was commanding the heavy cruiser USS Yorktown, and she was getting ready to try something that had never been done before in space combat. Her ship was equipped with nuclear torpedoes, weapons that were designed to get close to enemy ships before exploding. Target the enemy flagship, she ordered. Full spread of nuclear torpedoes. The torpedoes launched from the Yorktown and streaked toward the Korthik command ship. The alien point defense systems managed to destroy 2 of them, but the third one got through. The nuclear explosion lit up space like a small sun. When the light faded, the Korthik flagship was a twisted wreck. Its hull cracked open and its systems dead, but the most shocking thing for the Korthik was still to come. As the human fleet closed to short range, small ships began launching from the larger vessels. These were boarding shuttles, filled with human Marines in powered armor. Sergeant Bobby Turner was leading one of these boarding parties. His suit of powered armor made him look like a robot, but inside he was all human. He and his squad were heading for a Korthik cruiser that had been damaged by railgun fire. Remember, he told his men as their shuttle approached the alien ship, these things have never fought humans in close combat. They don't know what they're dealing with. The shuttle attached itself to the Korthek ship's hull and cut through the armor with plasma torches. Within minutes, the Marines were inside the alien vessel. Moving through corridors that were designed for beings much larger than humans, the Korthek crew tried to fight back, but their energy weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat, not fighting in narrow corridors. The human Marines, on the other hand, were trained specifically for this kind of fighting. "Contact front," Bobby called out as they encountered a group of Korthek warriors. The aliens were impressive, standing nearly 8 feet tall with metal weapons built into their arms. But they moved slowly and their weapons took time to charge up. The human weapons fired bullets that traveled faster than sound. The Korthek warriors fell before they could even aim their energy weapons. "These things don't know how to fight up close," Bobby reported to his commander. "They're designed for long-range combat only." All across the battlefield, the same thing was happening. Human boarding parties were taking control of Korthek ships while the main fleet continued to pound the alien vessels with kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles. Commander Vexthal found himself trapped on his own ship as human Marines fought their way toward the bridge. He had sent distress signals to the other Korthek fleets, but he knew they would not arrive in time. "How is this possible?" he asked his surviving officers. "These humans use primitive weapons, but they are winning." "They fight differently than any species we have encountered," replied his tactical officer. "They do not try to preserve their ships. They accept casualties that other species would consider unacceptable. And they adapt their tactics during battle." Vexthal looked at the tactical display. More than half of his fleet was either destroyed or captured. The rest were trying to retreat, but the human ships were faster and more maneuverable than expected. "Signal the retreat," he ordered. "We must warn the Dominion about these humans," but it was too late. The human fleet had surrounded the remaining Korthek ships. One by one, they were being destroyed or boarded by human Marines. 6 hours after the battle began, it was over. The Korthek fleet that had terrorized the Velari for months was completely destroyed. Not a single alien ship escaped. On the surface of Asen Prime, the Velari watched in amazement as the human fleet took control of their system. They had expected to die today, but instead they had been saved by warriors from across the galaxy. Coordinator Zethka sent a message to Admiral Morrison. "We have never seen anything like this. Your people fight like nothing we have ever witnessed. The Korthek will not forget this day." Morrison's reply was simple: "Neither will we. This is just the beginning." Supreme Overlord Krexvel was not used to receiving bad news. For 300 years, the Korthek Dominion had conquered every enemy they faced. Other species either surrendered quickly or were destroyed slowly. There was never any doubt about the outcome. Now he stood in the command center of the Dominion's greatest fortress, staring at reports that made no sense. An entire fleet had been destroyed by an unknown species. Not defeated, not damaged, but completely wiped out in a single battle. "Show me the recordings again," he ordered, the holographic display activated, showing the battle at Asen Prime from the perspective of the few Korthek ships that had managed to transmit data before being destroyed. Krexvel watched human ships charge directly into Korthek weapons fire, seemingly unconcerned about taking damage. "Analysis," he demanded from War Prime Thek-Gor. His chief military strategist. Thek Gor was a veteran of dozens of campaigns. Half of his body had been replaced with mechanical parts after battles with various alien species, but he had never seen anything like the human attack. "The enemy uses kinetic weapons almost exclusively," Thek-Gor reported. "Our shields are designed to deflect energy beams, not solid projectiles. Their weapons punch through our defenses like they are not there." "What about their tactics?" "Completely unlike any species we have fought. Most civilizations try to minimize casualties and preserve their ships. These humans seem to view their vessels as expendable weapons. They close to short range and fight at distances that would be considered suicidal by other species." Krexvel studied the display showing a human ship ramming a Korthek cruiser. The human vessel was destroyed in the collision, but it took the larger alien ship with it. "They destroyed themselves to kill us," he said slowly. What kind of species does that? A dangerous one, the Gore replied. But there is something else. The humans use small attack craft to board our ships. No other species has ever tried to fight us inside our own vessels. The display showed human marines in powered armor moving through Korthik corridors, their weapons cutting down alien warriors who had never learned to fight in close quarters. How many of these humans are there? Krexvel asked. Unknown. Intelligence suggests they control at least 50 star systems, possibly more, but they have only recently developed interstellar travel. This was probably their first major space battle. Their first battle, and they destroyed an entire fleet? Krexvel's mechanical voice rose in pitch. How is that possible? They appear to be natural warriors, the Gore explained. Our intelligence shows that their species has been fighting constant wars on their homeworld for thousands of years. They have developed military technology and tactics that are specifically designed to kill other intelligent beings. Krexvel was silent for a long moment. The Korthik had conquered 12 different alien civilizations, but all of those species had been peaceful. They had technology and sometimes superior weapons, but they did not understand war the way the Korthik did. These humans were different. They understood war very well. Prepare the 3rd and 7th fleets, he ordered. If these humans want to challenge the Dominion, they will face our full power. 3 weeks later, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Normandy, looking at intelligence reports that the Valari had provided. The aliens had spy networks throughout Korthek space, and the news was not good. They are massing 2 full fleets at the Zarian system, reported Captain Lisa Hayes. Our best estimate is 150 ships, including their newest dreadnoughts. Admiral Morrison studied the tactical display. Zarian was a major Korthik mining facility, heavily defended and strategically important. If the humans could capture it, they would cripple the alien empire's ability to build new ships. How many ships can we put together? She asked Commander. Blake consulted his tablet. 60 ships maximum. The government is sending every available vessel, including ships from the outer colonies. Morrison nodded. The odds were not good, but humans had won battles against worse odds before. What about the Valari? They have 12 ships that are still battle-ready, Blake replied. Their technology is different from ours, but they are willing to fight. Good, we'll need every advantage we can get. The human fleet that assembled at the edge of Zarian's system was larger than any force humanity had ever put together. Ships from Earth, Mars, the asteroid colonies, and the outer worlds had all answered the call. Some of the vessels were military. Ships designed for war. Others were converted cargo haulers and mining ships that had been fitted with weapons. Captain Roy Hughes commanded the USS Constitution, one of the heavy battleships that formed the core of the human fleet. His ship was armed with the latest railguns and nuclear missiles, but he knew that firepower alone would not be enough against the Korthik force waiting for them. Admiral, we are detecting the enemy fleet, reported the sensor officer. They are in defensive formation around the mining facility. Morrison looked at the tactical display. The Korthak had learned from their previous defeat. Instead of spreading out in a loose formation, they were clustered together in a tight defensive sphere. Their ships were covering each other, making it harder for human weapons to find weak spots. They adapted, she said. They know about our kinetic weapons now. Captain Danny Cooper, commanding the assault ship USS Hammer, spoke up on the communication channel. Admiral, they may have adapted, but they don't know all of our capabilities yet. Morrison smiled. You're right. All ships, prepare for Operation Thunderstrike. The human attack came in 3 waves just as they had planned. The first wave, led by Captain Cooper's heavy assault ships, engaged the Korthak fleet directly. The alien ships opened fire with their energy weapons, but this time they were ready for the human response. The Korthik had developed new shield frequencies that were more effective against kinetic weapons. Human railgun rounds that had easily penetrated alien defenses before were now being stopped or deflected. They learned from our last battle, Cooper reported. Their shields are holding. Phase 2, Morrison ordered. The second wave of the attack came from an unexpected direction. Captain Amy Rodriguez led a squadron of small, fast ships that had been hidden among the asteroids in the outer system. These stealth carriers launched clouds of fighter craft that swarmed toward the Korthek fleet. The alien point defense systems opened fire, but the human fighters were different from anything the Korthek had seen before. Instead of trying to dogfight with the alien weapons, the fighters carried special payloads, electromagnetic pulse bombs. When the EMP weapons detonated near the Korthek ships, they disrupted the alien electronics and shield systems. Suddenly, the Korthek vessels were vulnerable again. Now, Morrison ordered. Phase 3. Captain Henry Wells had been waiting for this moment. His ship, the USS Thunder, was equipped with an experimental weapon that human scientists had developed based on captured Korthek technology. It was a gravity cannon that could create localized gravitational fields. Target the enemy command ship, Wells ordered. Full power to the gravity cannon. The weapon fired, creating an invisible field of intense gravity around the Korthek flagship. The alien ship was suddenly pulled in multiple directions by gravitational forces that no ship was designed to withstand. The Korthek vessel was crushed like an aluminum can. Impossible, breathed War Prime Gore as he watched his flagship being destroyed. He was commanding the battle from a secondary vessel, and he could not believe what he was seeing. The humans had not just adapted Korthek technology, they had improved it and used it in ways that the original designers had never imagined. All ships retreat, he ordered. We cannot win this battle. But Morrison was not going to let them escape. All ships pursue and destroy. We end this here. The battle that followed was brutal and one-sided. The Korthek ships tried to retreat, but the human vessels were faster and more maneuverable. 1. By 1, the alien ships were hunted down and destroyed. When the fighting was over, the Zarian system belonged to humanity. The mining facility that had supplied the Korthek war machine for decades was now in human hands, but more importantly, the galaxy had received a message. The species that had terrorized civilizations for centuries had been defeated, twice by newcomers who had only recently learned to travel between stars. Admiral Morrison stood on her bridge, looking at the wreckage of the Korthek fleet floating in space around them. Send a message to Earth, she ordered. Tell them we won, and tell them to prepare for the next phase. The Korthek will not give up easily. As her communication officer sent the message, Morrison thought about what would come next. The Korthek Dominion was vast and powerful, with thousands of ships and hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity before. The galaxy was about to learn what total war meant when humans were involved. 6 months had passed since the first battle at Assen Prime, and the war had spread across 17 star systems. For the first time in their history, the Korthek Dominion was fighting a defensive war. Their ships were being destroyed faster than they could build new ones, and their conquered worlds were being liberated one by one. Supreme Overlord Krexvel stood in his private chamber aboard the massive fortress that orbited the Korthek homeworld of Mordek. Through the thick armored windows he could see the planet below, a world of dark metal cities and factory complexes that had been the center of the Dominion for 3 centuries. The reports on his desk made for grim reading. 12 star systems lost to the humans, 30 fleets destroyed or scattered, hundreds of thousands of Korthek warriors dead. And worst of all, other alien species were beginning to rebel. Inspired by human victories, War Prime Gore entered the chamber, his mechanical legs clicking on the metal floor. Half of his face had been replaced with sensors and targeting equipment after his last encounter with human forces. The humans are massing their largest fleet yet, he reported. Our scouts count over 300 ships approaching our home system. Krexvel turned away from the window. 300 ships. How many can we field in defense? Every available vessel, Gore replied. Nearly 1,000 ships, including all of our orbital defense platforms and the home fleet. Good odds, Krexvel said, but his voice lacked confidence. The Korthek had learned that numbers alone did not guarantee victory against humans, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Normandy, watching the greatest fleet in human history prepare for the final battle. Ships from every colony world, every military base, and every spacefaring nation on Earth had answered the call. The fleet stretched for thousands of kilometers through space, a collection of warships, carriers, and support vessels. Captain Bruce Lang commanded the dreadnought USS Hammer, one of the newest and most powerful ships in the human fleet. His vessel was equipped with the latest gravity weapons and kinetic bombardment systems. "Admiral," he said over the communication channel, "are we really going to attack their homeworld? Once we do this, there's no going back." Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the Korthak home system. Morthak was surrounded by defense stations, orbital fortresses, and the largest concentration of enemy ships they had ever faced. "Captain, they made their choice when they decided to be a plague on the galaxy," she replied. "We're going to end that plague today." The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Morthak system, and immediately the Korthak response began. Energy beams lanced out from the orbital fortresses, and hundreds of enemy ships moved to intercept the human force. But the humans had learned from their previous battles too. Instead of charging directly at the enemy, they spread out into multiple attack groups, each one targeting a different part of the Korthak defenses. Captain Ellen Davis led the first attack group toward the outer ring of defense stations. Her ships were equipped with long-range nuclear missiles that could strike targets from millions of kilometers away. "All ships, fire at will," she ordered. Hundreds of missiles streaked toward the Korthak positions. The alien point defense systems managed to intercept many of them, but enough got through to cripple several defense stations. At the same time, Captain Amy Rodriguez was leading her stealth carriers on a flanking maneuver around the planet's north pole. Her fighters launched surprise attacks on Korthak supply ships and communication relays, disrupting the enemy's ability to coordinate their defense, but the main assault was being led by General Steve Parker, who had volunteered to command the ground invasion force. His troop transports were heavily armored and escorted by the most powerful warships in the human fleet. "Remember," he told his soldiers as they prepared for battle, "we're not just fighting for the Villari anymore. We're fighting to make sure the Korthak never threaten anyone again." The battle for Morthak was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Korthak threw everything they had at the human fleet: ancient weapons that had conquered a dozen civilizations, experimental technology that had never been tested in combat, even kamikaze attacks by their most fanatical warriors, but human determination proved stronger than Korthak desperation. Ship after ship, the human fleet pushed closer to the planet, destroying defense stations and enemy vessels with ruthless efficiency. Captain Henry Wells was commanding a squadron of heavy cruisers when they encountered the Korthak's secret weapon, a massive space station armed with a cannon that could destroy planets. The weapon was charging up to fire at the human fleet when Wells made a decision that would be remembered forever. "All ships, follow me," he ordered. "We're going to ram that thing." His squadron of 6 ships accelerated toward the enemy weapon, their engines pushed beyond safe limits. The Korthak tried to stop them, but the human ships were too fast and too determined. The collision destroyed Wells and his entire squadron, but it also crippled the planet-killer weapon. The explosion could be seen from across the star system, a brilliant flash that announced humanity's willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. On the surface of Morthak, the battle was just as fierce. General Parker's Marines had landed in the industrial sectors of the planet, fighting their way through factories and processing plants where Korthak weapons were manufactured. Lieutenant Colonel Nancy Brown was leading her troops through a slave labor camp when they discovered the full horror of the Korthak system. Thousands of beings from dozens of different species were imprisoned there, working in conditions that would kill most humans within days. "My God," she whispered as she saw the extent of the suffering. "How many species have they done this to?" The freed prisoners could barely believe their rescue. Some had been slaves for decades, others for their entire lives. They had never imagined that someone would come to save them. As the human forces pushed deeper into the planet, the Korthak resistance began to crumble. Their military had been designed to conquer other species, not to defend their own world against an enemy that fought with such intensity. Supreme Overlord Krexvel found himself trapped in his command bunker as human forces surrounded the planetary capital. His advisors were gone, his fleets were destroyed, and his empire was collapsing around him. How did this happen? He asked Thekgor, who was one of the few commanders still alive. They fight like no other species we have encountered. Thekgor replied, they do not fear death. They do not hesitate to sacrifice themselves for their objectives, and they never stop adapting. The final assault on the Korthak Command Center was led by Sergeant Bobby Turner, the same Marine who had participated in the first boarding action months earlier. His squad fought their way through the heavily defended bunker, facing the last desperate defenders of the Dominion. When they finally reached the command center, they found Krexvel waiting for them. The Supreme Overlord was a massive figure, more machine than organic being, but his sensors showed that he was beaten. I surrender, he said in heavily accented English. The Dominion yields to humanity. Bobby looked at the alien leader who had terrorized the galaxy for so long. It's too late for surrender. Your empire is finished. The war ended not with a great battle, but with a simple transmission sent across the galaxy. Admiral Morrison's message was broadcast on every frequency that intelligent species used. The Korthak Dominion has fallen. Their reign of terror is over. Any species that threatens innocent worlds will face the same fate. The response was immediate. Civilizations that had hidden from the Korthak for centuries emerged from their hiding places. Species that had been enslaved declared their independence. And everywhere, beings looked to humanity as the force that had brought peace to their corner of the galaxy. 5 years later, Admiral Morrison stood in the same command center where she had first met Coordinator Zethka. The Velari diplomat was now a close friend and the first ambassador of the Galactic Defense Alliance, an organization that included 37 different species. The galaxy has changed, Zethka observed, his skin showing the golden color that indicated happiness. Your people have brought something new to the stars. Morrison looked out at the space beyond the station, where human and alien ships patrolled. Together, we just did what we thought was right. Someone had to stop the bullies. As they watched, another distress signal appeared on the communication board. A distant species was calling for help against a new threat, raiders who were attacking shipping lanes in a remote sector. Morrison smiled and reached for her communicator. This is Admiral Morrison to all fleet commanders. We have a situation that requires our attention. The response came back immediately from dozens of ships. Standing by for orders, Admiral. Zethka watched as the human fleet prepared for another mission. You never rest, do you? The galaxy is a big place, Morrison replied. There's always someone who needs help, and there's always someone who thinks they can take what doesn't belong to them. As long as that's true, humanity and our allies will be here to even the odds. The stars held many dangers, but they also held something that had been missing for too long: hope. When the innocent called for help, they could count on an answer.